Welcome to the Panic Podcast. We panic because we have no fucking idea what we are doing.
Hello and welcome to the Panic Podcast. I'm your host, Yaar's Revenge, and joining me today we have some exquisite guests, so why don't you all introduce yourselves?
I'm Sliv. I am Senior FC, Lead Trainer, and Director of Panic Stations.
I am Tyler. I am with Whiskey Tango Foxtrot with Panic Alliance, and I am just a grunt here to hang out.
Hi, Predator Elite, current court member of AMOC and Goon Swarm, head of Did He Say Jump, Old School.
Hi, I'm Patrick, and I'm currently playing with the Tuskers, haunting Nullsec systems out of Lowsec under a wormhole. And last year I've been the team captain of Shadow Cartel's Alliance tournament team.
I am Jarlaxle. I am with Panic Attack, and I love everything we do, from pewing to building shit to just killing everything.
So, first question, how's everyone doing?
Bit tired?
Pretty good.
Saturday, so not too bad.
It's nice to just have a kind of casual day where you don't really have to worry about doing anything.
Yeah, I woke up from a nap this afternoon and went straight into a fleet fight. Can't complain too much about that.
Oh, I love
That's
those.
the best thing ever.
I love waking up and checking Slack and seeing there's like a ping for a fleet and I'm 5 minutes before the form up or something and just going, shit, yeah, I can just go straight into it. So, first thing we're going to talk about today, I'm sure everyone is aware that we have upcoming changes for both assault frigates and heavy assault cruisers. So, what do we think of them?
Meh. I like the base speed increase. I think that's pretty nice. But I don't really care for the dreadnought damage control, essentially. They should just give them more resistances and maybe fix some of their bonuses.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement here with Slev. I think the only thing that just AFs and hacks need in general is just like give them an armor or a shield buff and then just give them more resistance because they're a T2 hull, and I think they would be awesome. Also, very annoyed that they turned the Jaguar into a missile boat.
But its attack tube breacher is awesome.
I think based on current numbers, it looks like it is going to do less damage in the breacher.
See, that's when you know it's bad. It's when it does worse than a T1.
Right, if
I
you
don't know
ask
if
the
they
question
changed
about
it.
the day again, it's bad now.
Yeah. I don't know if they changed it, but that's what I saw the initial dev blog release on Reddit. We were fucking with the numbers and kind of seeing how awful it looks like it's going to be. Excited
The
about
thing I feel about the assault frigates is I love the idea of them because they're small ships and they feel like the next logical step to move when someone's learning how to PvP and they're getting into sort of bigger stuff. Starting in frigates and then moving to something like a cruiser or an assault frigate feels like the next logical step. But there's just something missing with assault frigates of you just don't pick them. There are ships you would much rather pick over an assault frigate, and it's a real shame because they are lovely ships.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
They completely lack their role at the moment, because if you want something small and fast and something that does the assault role, you just pick a destroyer these days.
Yeah, I mean, you start looking at T2 ships like Ishkars, Retributions, Jags. I mean, why not just do, a T3 Desi, 3F Maguses and stuff? They do basically the exact same, but just better, and you have a jump effect.
Yeah. I mean, I've only just started getting into using the Magus myself, and I absolutely love it. Like, I don't know why it's taking me this long to look at command destroyers, but like with assault frigates, I kind of want to imagine where it's very, very fragile potentially, but has shitloads of DPS, or it has a good amount of DPS but like an insane amount of tank because it's so small and it's so fast, and they're neither of those things, which is it's bizarre. Like it would be very easy to make it into one of those things, and either one of those things I feel would be a good option for them. But at the moment, it just feels like it's a meh kind of ship.
Well, at that point, wouldn't they just necessarily be turning into, your faction frigates, Navy or Pirate? I mean, at that point, because that's basically what it would boil down to at that sense. Where with this, I think they're still keeping the T2, but with the increased max velocity and the decreased mass, I think that's going to kind of accomplish more. You're going to be faster and harder to hit.
Maybe, but yeah, I mean, you kind of have to think about it. Like the faction and kind of pirate, like frigates and whatnot, should have their own aspect. They should have all specialized bonuses that are related to them. And I don't think CCP's really done that in a sense. They've kind of just said, screw it, and they they put the assault frig in a spot where I don't think it's ever really going to be too useful at this point anymore. I mean, it gets overshadowed by almost everything.
And that makes sense. I mean, because whenever I go to a ship, I mean, I'm not going to use an assault frigate. I mean, I very rarely see the use for them anymore, to be honest. So, I mean, I can see what you're saying. I think they're just trying to make slight improvements on it, but I think they have a far way to go.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, really, command destroyers and the tactical destroyers, they do everything that the assault frigs are supposed to do, but better. So I think they have to choose the role for the Desi side, because they're hard tackle, they do weird tricks and shit. Assault frigs, you can kind of use them for hard tackle over a scepter until you get your Desi gang on field, but they're not quite tanky enough. This might swing that role kind of into a heavy tackle, but I don't think it's going to do it too well. I think I'd still rather have like a Magus or a Hecate doing it.
Just gonna throw it out there. I'm still quite annoyed they haven't given the Retribution another mid slot. like seriously?
Yeah, and they took away the tracking bonus, and now you can't even do the Mark Warcraft kitey thing anymore.
Yeah,
How many mid slots does it have at this point then?
2, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no,
Yeah,
that's
2
not enough.
mids. It's more than it used to have, but
That's still not good though.
I mean,
No,
so they got rid of the tracking, right? And now you add rate of fire. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna do a prop mod and a scram. Well, if something has an AB, you're not gonna track it, or at least you're not gonna track it as well. So that kind of rules it out as a solo ship, which is quite unfortunate.
I feel it's odd that they're trying to, I guess, repair the Jaguar with how broken it already was beforehand. I like their note at the bottom. We want to express condolences to projectile Jaguar lovers. There aren't many of you, but we care about you. Well, I feel like these changes still aren't even going to fix it.
To be honest, the Jaguar was one of my absolute favorite assault frigates, and if you fly it correctly, like a shield gang style, or even in like shield fleets where you have shield logi frigate-wise, it is a mean ship. It can tear some stuff up. I mean, I think the Jaguar is better than the Retribution, and it's probably better than the Enyo and Ishkar. Might not be as good as the Hawk, or the Harpy, or the Hawk, but I still think it's up there. I didn't think that they had to change it to a missile boat.
And the damage control, I want to like it, but it feels like it's been put there and it doesn't really do a purpose. It's just great, we just stop firing on that ship for like 10 seconds, then fire on it again, and GG.
yeah, they nerfed it a lot. In the initial announcement, it was a lot stronger during that time, and now it's just 75 resists.
Yeah, 75.
So, I mean, initially I thought, okay, that's gonna help some assault frigates, in particular those who run like the Ansel Armor Wrapper, to survive the time where maybe you can go and reload. But, I mean, with those changes, even that won't happen anymore, and the cooldown is like 3 minutes.
Yeah, the duration of the longest one, which is the Shadow Serpentis assault damage control, is 16 seconds, and they all have a reactivation delay of 150 seconds, which that's just not enough time to do anything. Like, maybe it's enough time to burn out of point range, but it probably isn't. It's not enough time to reload and still charges. Like, it's just not enough time to do anything. It's just 16 seconds extra you're going to be on field before you die.
Pretty much, yeah. And I don't think that's going to change for the assault cruisers either. It's not going to change their playstyle as well.
Well, I think in terms of like the assault cruisers and AFs, it kind of depends on what you use it for, because you can definitely use that for heavy tackle for your mainline fleet. Like, if you need to tackle something and you need it to survive, end up throwing this on. You're holding it for 16 seconds, assuming you're the best one.
See, that kind of module would be really cool if interceptors could take it, because then that would make interceptors for tackling, so good.
Oh yeah,
they
definitely.
But they are really good.
But
Like,
I mean, by really good, I mean just even better.
They're so fucking good. They're in a great spot right now. Some of them suck, but the main, at least the two that I use the most, are the Mali and the Ares. Nah, I like the Ares. It's my ship. But you don't get caught. You transversal, you spiral, and just run away from Orthoses and Garmers, and you're fine. Curses. Fuck curses.
I mean, you think about it, you put that module on a scepter, and you can definitely suicide scram some. I mean, I definitely could have killed a couple Barghest or some Orthruses or anything kitey pretty easily if I had this.
I'm not a very good interceptor pilot at all, as Sliff can probably back up.
You're
but
awful.
I know I am. But if interceptors had a module like that, like hell, even if it was for like 10 seconds, like just a shorter time, the ability to land on a target, point it, engage that, and just go, I've got it tackled, gives you that those few extra seconds for your fleet to land on you and get hard tackle on it, which is I would love that. But again, maybe I'm just blue sky thinking.
I mean, I think it really has to depend on what you're tackling and who your scepter pilot is. If I'm in a scepter and I'm not tackling an Orthrus, a Garmer, a Scythe fleet issue with rapid lights, probably going to be fine for at least 45, 50 seconds, depending on what I'm hitting. So that amount of time getting your fleet on grid to grab, let's say, an assault frigate as a heavy tackle, it's not that bad. It's really not that hard to stay alive in a scepter. You just have to be really good at it. Kind of like it's practice. It really is.
Yeah.
Biomass your last character. To unlock a secret special bonus CCP has hidden in the character screen. It's worth it, trust me.
So let's move on to a topic which is going to be a bit of a divided one. Upwell 2.0. What do we feel about that?
Ugh.
Not much different to the first topic then.
It's good we've got a consistent feel going. This is the episode of ugh.
I do like the idea of the full and low power modes, though. That'd be helpful for especially people that don't keep, any eyes on their own Citadel or don't keep care of it.
It's going to cut down on the amount of Citadel trash that is just around all over the place, which I think is quite nice. Because the issue I've seen is people are complaining about POS trash for years, going, oh, this is ridiculous. Citadels will fix it, though. And then now you've got areas filled with Citadels that no one ever uses because they deploy them and then they just abandon them. And there's no penalty for doing so. Whereas now, it actually is easier to clear up those kinds of Citadels. And you can just go, cool, it's a low-power Citadel, let's nuke it. And you can actually recognize which Citadels are being actively used and which ones potentially are just left to rot.
So just to be sure about it, when it's low power, it skips the first reinforcement timer, right? So it just skips straight to the last one.
It skips the armor one.
Yes, so you have to wait a week, basically, to clear it out.
It's essentially going to be like shooting passes again. Shoot them anytime you want, except now you can do some kind of weird thing where you take a relic data analyzer and scan the Citadel so you can see what the timers are, so you can plan around it, which I kind of like, but if there's anybody in it, you're dead. You're done. I mean, I don't know. I still think it's a shitty system. I still think defenders have way too much power, even though I have been losing them. I don't really care. Like, I still think as a defender, especially under tie-dye conditions, being at that tri-fight, like, it's just awful to be an attacker against these things when they're fully powered.
It's going to be a pain. But at least one thing that they have taken out of the upcoming change is they're not putting the stand-up GTFO modules on, which is a good thing, because that was going to be absolutely ridiculous if they did that.
But they did add super carrier weapons to it. So
they have, yeah.
Yeah.
They got rid of void bombs, but still gave it more cancer. So I don't know. I don't think we really lost anything or gained anything from that.
I feel like their defense is actually going to be stronger now with the weapons that they have. You can't just go after them with peddly things anymore. It's going to have to be something. It's going to have to be a huge coordinated attack to get past those weapons, I would think.
I was about to say, did they state which Citadel can use those, or is it any Citadel can equip those? Like, they didn't say, oh, it can only be put on, like, Keepstars, or it can only be put on Fortizars.
All it says is, in addition to the super carrier-style burst projectors, Upwell structures will also be getting the ability to use a variant of the so that implies that it's all Citadels.
Oh dear.
Yeah, see, now we're talking really cancer.
Yeah, that Astrahus has got a super carrier weapon on it. Good job, boys.
If you start putting weapons like that on Astras and, like, refining stations too, then that's a big issue. I think at some point CCP's going to need to clarify, hey, maybe you can only put this on Keepstars.
Well, it says down here that the stand-up gravitational transport field oscillator will be limited to large and extra large structures.
They have
So forts and keeps.
They are not putting the GTFO module on anything. They've confirmed they have removed that from the Upwell 2.0.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool.
I mean, they're probably going to stick it on keeps and forts, which is still cancer, but I don't think refineries are going to get that much of a buff.
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting it at all.
No, I mean, I appreciate that CCP would, if they were going to do it, they'd put it on keeps or forts, because at that point, at least you have some, like, there's a reason why you attack a fort or a keep star. You don't just attack one for fun.
But it's by adding this change, it's nice for actually what Tyler was saying of you can't just take down a Citadel now with a couple of stealth bombers. You actually have to really go for it and actually have to bring a fleet, which again it can encourage content, but I feel we're sat on the edge between cancerous and giving content.
I think they care too much about little guys and not bigger entities that have to deal with the tie-dye of some of this shit. Like going out into, was it A24, I think it was? For the tri-fight. There were 6,000 people on grid, and the Citadel was just wrecking things with the defense on it. It's ridiculous. I think it's way too strong. I don't know what I think about the fighter changes. I haven't seen the details on that, but I don't know. I think it's a whole mess of a system, and they care too much about the little entities, like 1 to 5 man groups defending it, than the bigger entities that have to deal with the horse shit involved with 300 or 400 guys on each side.
From what I can see about the fighters, the stand-up fighters will be even more powerful than regular fighters.
Yeah, they just get pretty much a bonus you would usually get in a ship built in.
Yeah. It just feels like CCP is looking at the problems with Citadel fights and going, oh, we know the problem, here's how to fix it, and they're missing the big problem of it, which is they favour the defender way too much in like 9 out of 10 situations.
There's no argument there. I mean, that even goes back into having, like, you can only hit the structure at a certain amount of time for what, like 10 minutes? So someone could set that like 10 minutes before downtime that you would have to go hit their Citadel in the first place, and that's just cancer. I don't know, because I've gone on Citadel bashes where I've had to like get up a couple hours before work, go RS something, and then go into work, and it's just like, yeah, it's just like kind of why?
Just because you can.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, if you want to talk cancer, you can look at the fact that they're increasing the locking ranges for the Upwell structures to 400 kilometers.
Oh, good. And because they're vulnerable 24/7, they can scram 24/7.
Yeah, and then you can upgrade it even further to 490 with scripts and rigs and modules.
Yay!
Well, the scram is getting a timer.
Oh.
I don't like it. I don't think it's good. I think it should be scriptable, or at least only a disruptor, so you can actually use things other than max. You're kind of stuck using AB fleets no matter what to fight this.
Definitely a long point. Like, actually, we were talking about this last month. A long point which acts out to like 250k isn't horrific, and then a scram which is 100 kilometers or shorter, it's still effective and it's still going to be good for defending it. But it means with the Athenors, you can at least hit things in the mining belts without going, I don't have an afterburner, therefore I'm dead.
To be honest, I'm not even a big fan that Citadels can point. I don't see why that's a thing. I think they should just be a DPS platform.
I really think they should drop all support capabilities. Like, I can go with kind of like target painters, maybe a couple webs, maybe TD, but I really think they should be links platforms. Like, heavy link platforms, I think would be great.
So what, have an Athenor act as like a super Rorqual or something?
Yeah, give the mining fleet links while it's on grid, and then take away a lot of its offensive capabilities. Even give it like scriptable armor links, shield links, stuff like that, so you can fight on them without having to worry about a retarded scram.
Yeah.
To 3,000 kilometers. Like, it's overkill.
So one change, which is also coming out Part 2.0, which again, I'm in mixed opinions about, is the adding moon mining to wormhole space and 0.5 high-sec systems. What do we think about that?
We have been looking into the mining in our wormhole. But basically, if I read it correctly, it's just the lower tier moon goo and the shinier normal minerals, right?
From what I can tell, yeah.
And yeah, I don't think it changes a lot because right now so many minerals are being put into the game just because of the roll. I don't think that's gonna affect it a lot.
I'm digging the idea of putting moon mining stuff in 0.5. At least we'll shake up high sec at least a little bit. Maybe get that active so you get people coming through low sec to get into high sec as well.
It'll be nice
Could
to
increase
see
that traffic as well. So
it'd be nice to see people mining in like the systems right next door to us, because that's a 0.5 as well. Because then you've still got that security of high sec, but also it encourages content like Suicide Gang King, all that kind of stuff, because it's still 0.5, so it's still not risk free. But it also gives people who are not comfortable going to Lowsec or Nullsec yet a chance to kind of get a try at it and be like, oh, this is kind of what it's like. Oh, I'm going to try it in Lowsec or I'm going to try it in Nullsec because that's where it's at.
but yeah, that definitely has some like positive effect in terms of content.
One change which also is coming up, which is a huge quality of life change, is they're adding icons to the structure brackets to show you if you can or can't dock at a citadel without having to go to it.
Finally.
Literally, just look in your overview and it'll have a green arrow if you can dock in it, and an orange line if you can't dock in it.
Yeah, it's definitely about time they put that in.
It's also got things like unanchoring structures. It'll now display a progress timer in the structure browser to characters of the station manager role, which again is a small quality of life change, but it's good. You've also got, when unfitting a clone-based service module, you'll get a pop-up telling you how many jump clones you're going to be destroying by doing it. So I guess for those people who want to do that, you get to see how much carnage you're causing.
It causes a little bit of drama.
Let's see. You can also self-destruct pods inside a citadel with a cloning-based service module, just like in stations.
Good.
And they're also adding blueprint locking to Upwell structures.
When do I get my Upwell skins?
I don't know.
Ugh.
They're also adding different characters to the Upwell structures naming, so you can have dollars and pound signs and percentages and stuff if you really want to do that.
I think they need to fix everything else before that other quality of life horse shit about names and...
They've missed all the things that should be changed and gone, but wait, we have an icon that tells you if you can dock in this citadel. It's revolutionary.
No. I mean, you
Okay.
could still, even with the time changes, being able to attack them, defenders still get to time zone tank whenever they want, within a window, but you could still center it around AZ and you're screwed.
I mean, time zone tanking with the new one is going to be horrible because you can now set all your citadels to come out at the same 15-minute window for all your citadels, which is just horrible.
Yeah.
If you're the ECM bitch of the fleet, then fit as many different types of E-War as possible. You cannot predict the future, and must be prepared for it.
Okay, so moving on to the big topic of the day. This is basically we want to compare the state of Lowsec to the state of Nullsec, and talk about the comparisons between the Blue Donut and No Standings groups, because this is quite a hotly debated topic, particularly in response to the Goonswarm siege of the Pamfam Keepstar and the destruction of the Triumph Sistel. The whole concept of the Blue Donut.
Basically, all of Nullsec is friends with each other, and they only stage fights to stage fights, and it doesn't promote content. It promotes safety and boredom, and then the CEOs have to go, all right, how about we just go fight those guys, because everyone's bored. Everyone's friends, everyone's blue. I don't like having too many blues. I like being able to shoot whoever I want, and I think no blues is kind of what EVE is about initially. People can just blow your shit up and there's nothing you can do about it. I like the game being more and more difficult. I hate it being as easy as it is with asset safety and all that other shit.
Because we're in a no standings group, but I'm actually not sure what the what Tuskers have or what GSF tends to have for their standing policies.
In Tuskers, we only have alt as blue.
That is good.
coming from goons, like, sure, we have a lot of blues, but it's mainly just to go fight the other blue group. So that's just kind of how it ends up working out. Because if someone that doesn't have any friends tries to come out in Nullsec and, like, actually make a point or take an area, then, you know, you're just going to get beat up on. That's just kind of how it works, unfortunately.
So let's look at it from the pros and cons of this. What benefits do we see from the existence of things like the Blue Zoner in Lowsec and Nullsec?
Lowsec, there shouldn't be a blue donut at all. At least in my personal opinion, Lowsec should just be a straight brawl and a free-for-all. Just go at it. That's where a lot of the good content from this game actually came from, was originally Lowsec. So just put it back the way it was.
I mean, positives of everyone being blue is you're safe and you can get as much money as you want in relative safety. You could put up all your structures. I'm for games where I always choose hardcore mode, so when I die I'm dead and I have to start over from the beginning, and it's very niche with EVE where I can create an empire and any day somebody can completely destroy it, and it's just getting harder and harder to do that, and they're catering to casuals. And I think the hardcore crowd really wants everything and anything to be able to be destroyed. Like, you're done. And I don't like the blue everything because that gives me less content to mess with. It makes the political thing really messy, and oh, we weren't blue at the time, sorry I shot you, and like it's nonsense. I think less blues is better, but then you get the people that brave those 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 man fights. Can't get that without a giant blue donut. So I guess it's down to everybody's opinion on, you know, do you want to stay to sub 100 man fights, whoever can recruit the most wins, or do you want to be able to team up with everybody and have this tie-dye clusterfuck? It's kind of good, but it's kind of bad, but in essence, it pushes CCP to make the server stronger, which then gives us bigger numbers and record-breaking this and that. Like, there's no other game that I know that can push that many people onto a single shard.
Yeah.
Even WoW has a cap at a certain point. So it's like every time we have one of these massive fights, they upgrade the server, you can shove more people into the system, and they just get bigger and bigger, which is great. I think the problem that we have as players is we try to keep pushing until the server limit, and we don't kind of cap ourselves in system, and that we can try to fight it out with not that bad of tie-dye. We kind of just dumpster into the system and try to break the server, because that's what we do inherently.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, sure, you can control your own forces from going into the system, and it actually seems like Goons attempted to do that. But you can't stop just randoms coming to also whore on a Keepstar.
Yeah.
So there's only so much that you can control, and when someone hears that a Keepstar is in its final timer, well, everyone and their mother is going to go over there because they want to get on the kill mail.
That too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, right now, having a lot of people is just the best defense, because you could just pour so many people into that system that Keepstar is pretty much unkillable. And you don't even need these people to fight, they just need to cause lag.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even people. It's basically people is your weapon. Because Goons alone could put so many people into a system that it could probably crash the node by themselves.
Without the enemy ever turning up.
Yep.
Pretty much.
And I heard they were having, like, the reason they were having so many problems is you had, two different, both sides had 3,000 or 300 supers and 300 times 5 fucking fighters each. Just a ridiculous amount of lag. Them trying to get caps in on top of that. Any kind of dread bomb wouldn't have worked with that. So when they were pushing for, hey, maybe we should get some Titans on grid, they just couldn't jump in. It was just too much lag.
I was actually surprised because I wasn't in the fight myself, but I was just watching the video of it. And I was kind of surprised that they let NCMPL get into the system before more Goons and their friends did. Because if Goons actually had more people in the system when the tie-dye would have kicked off, that Keepstar probably would have died. And at that point, you're just lagging out. NC and PL and P Horde from actually doing anything. And you're already set up.
Fleet fights don't need logistics, they slow everybody down and lag the game out. More DPS is what you need, do not bring reps.
So looking at it from the opposite perspective of sort of the Blue Donut, what do we feel are the pros and cons of having 0 blues, no standings, except for ults?
It's just comfortable, you can shoot whoever you want.
Yeah, it keeps the drama away too.
I mean, obviously it makes it harder to set up somewhere, but in the end, even if you have no official standings, I think if we wanted to set up in a specific Nullsec system, we just have blues for a week and then drop it again.
Because the biggest issue I see for it is the setting up and the getting started. Like, what if you've got an established group like us, for like, it's fine, but when you're just starting out, it can be problematic.
But in the end, having no blues doesn't mean you have no friends. I shoot my friends regularly, but if I need their help, I know they would come.
And that makes sense. I really do think that having 0 blues definitely makes things a little bit easier. You know who to trust. I mean, not saying that any of our blues aren't trustworthy, because that's definitely not the case. But, I mean, I'm a little jaded in the sense where I've been in Corps in the past where we've had so many blues that it's just things spiraled out of control. And as you mentioned drama earlier, it just, things blow up and then you're at odds with each other, and it's just never a good situation in my opinion.
Because like I remember a few years back, I tried to set up a Lowsec PvP group back when I didn't really know what was going on, and we didn't know anybody, so we didn't have any blues to even worry about not having, and we just couldn't get a foothold because we just didn't. We were going up against people who were friends with each other, and they've been there for a while, and it was just very difficult to get set up in that no blues situation. But once you are set up, it's fantastic, and like I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, when you don't have stations, it's going to be hard.
But the pros of it, I mean, from what I can see, is you just don't have to worry about who you shoot. You shoot someone, and you just go, cool, I shot that person. At the worst, you'll get someone message you, say, oh, that was my ult. What did you do? You know, why did you shoot it? And then you can respond with a, well, he wasn't blue, therefore, yeah.
Fill out the role request form.
But like, it's nice to not have to look at someone and be like, wait, am I allowed to engage that person? I better check with someone and potentially miss a good kill because you didn't know who they were or who they were with.
We find the easiest solution is just to blow them up. Then if it's someone's ult, be like, alright, we'll just pay for it.
That's a good way of doing it. I do quite like that idea. But just the whole idea of Lowsec being everyone looking out for themselves, nobody really buddying up, is a really appealing one, and I wish all of Lowsec was like that, because you do have some little, tiny little, almost blue bagels forming in Lowsec, and like that's all well and good, but I'm not a huge fan of it.
The blue donut's been a major issue in the game for a while.
But you can't really blame CCP for that one. That's on the players.
Oh yeah, no,
human nature.
CCP cannot get the blame for that one.
CCP can definitely get a little bit of blame for that, because the way that they have the money making, especially for alliances and groups to make, forces people to kind of work together and to ball up into a big group. I remember when the game first came out and people could make money completely fine, and you had like no blues whatsoever, other than people that you just kind of met. You weren't kind of forced to be in a group or anything. And now, just by some of the changes that they've made, you've kind of forced people into doing that.
Because I like the whole concept of EVE's not a single player game. You can't do things by yourself as well as someone working together. But it just feels like they've kind of gone to the wrong extreme with it and have sort of said, no, you must work together. You must be relying on blues and friends to do things. You can't do it on your own, which is a kind of, it's a nice idea, everyone working together, sort of, being all sort of blue and stuff. But can we just not?
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the entire case. I mean, when you look at all the money-making opportunities you have as doing solo in the game, I mean, you can do exploration, you can do high-sec mining, you can just sit there and no one's really going to mess with you other than a few set groups, and as long as you stay away from that, you can sit there in high-sec relatively undisturbed and just mine all day. And yeah, it's not the most fun, but I mean, I join corps and groups specifically to socialize and have fun with everybody. It's not because I necessarily need to for the ISK, but it just makes the game more fun. It's more content.
Definitely getting more content is the appealing side of the no standings. Like I can agree, it makes things a bit of a pain at times, but the benefits you get from it, it's just they're so good.
Plus, at the end, you can say it was your doing that caused you to be in the position you are right now. So if you fought for your foothold and now you live there because that's your work, not just because you joined someone else.
Exactly, yeah. It's things are much more appetizing when you can say we worked to do that, we built that, rather than we were just given it or we just got it because we're friends with people.
Skill injectors will give you cancer. Do not use them. They are not for public usage and you must cease all investigations into their production.
So, this is one aimed towards people who FC in the small gangs and also the larger fleets. When you're running fleets, what kind of roles do you have in the fleet and what do you look for in those roles?
Well, small gang, you've got your DPS, your backbone, Logi wing, and then from there it's going to be miscellaneous. You have your support wing, ECM, webs, target painters, tracking disruptors, depending on the fleet. You'll have anti-tackle roles to kill frigs. You'll have, depending on the group, you know, if it's, let's say it's cruisers and below, you'll have your DPS, tackle, anti-tackle, maybe scepters if low or null. Usually you'll see Garmers and specific. I mean, I like a Dramiel tackle, but mid slots are weird for it. It's more of an anti-tackle scepter dunker. But those are the basic roles. The one thing that's always needed, Logi, tackle, and ECM. Probably in that order.
What about you, Pred? What, as UFC larger fleets, what kind of things do you look for in comparison to that?
Well, I mean, like you said, you got your basic, you have your DPS, you have your Logi, you have usually cap alts that are preferred. Yeah, I mean, not much different. Sorry, I'm kind of not sure where to go with on that.
It's all right.
I mean, did you want to know like who you would look for to put in that type of position, or?
Well, it's sort of because a lot of times we get asked, sort of, how do you guys go about forming a fleet? How do you pick what doctrine to use? Whether you go armor, shield? How do you decide when you have enough Logi? How do you decide whether someone should be in a support boat or a DPS boat? And it's one of those questions that's quite difficult to answer unless you lead fleets yourself.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, when you get into topics of trying to decide what type of comp to go fight the other comp, it just usually depends on what the other person or what the other fleet has and the experience that you have from flying with your guys. So if you know your guys are pretty good at micromanaging themselves and can kind of know which angles to attack, keep what ranges, then you usually want to go with the shield small gang kitey group because you can actually do more damage than like a large heavy ball, depending on what you're fighting.
Okay, so you would say that the shield kitey stuff is more towards people who are self-sufficient, who are potentially more experienced in PvP, or at least flying their ships, and then the armor is the, I don't want to say fleets with training wheels, but you don't have to think for yourself as much as you do in a kitey gang.
Definitely, but that also depends on what type of ships you're running to, because there are definitely some nano armor ships, like a Navy Omen, you usually active tank nano, and you can kite away, and you're just kind of there to screen and kill off any tackle or ECM, and then apply damage to the main target. So a lot of it goes back to what type of ship that you're flying, and again, like what you're trying to engage. Wouldn't necessarily say that the main armor ball in itself is a training wheels fleet, but it definitely has the easier aspect of something rather, running than a kitey fleet. But you can have a shield heavy core comp too, like rattles and facts, and then all you do is web stuff and press F1 and then it dies.
I do like pressing F1 to do that.
Usually the easier thing to do.
Jarlax, you were going to say something about FCing, I believe.
I was just more on the original, what I thought your topic was, the positions. I was going to throw out shout out to scouts. Because with a good scout that knows how to tell you what's in local and what's on scan, nothing on the gate, this many in local, that can really help move a fleet along, keep people interested, keeps people from getting bored sitting on a gate if your scout's sitting there, trying to scout everything down.
That is a very good point, actually. I completely forgot about scouts, and I feel bad for saying, but I think a lot of people do forget about their scouts, and they don't give their scouts in their eyes the credit they deserve. I hear you agreeing with this, Slivers. That's basically you.
Yeah, because I'm the point. I'm always the point man. Scout FC, best FC. It turns me bitter, Betty, but I hate groups that new bros just get into fast tackle. You'll be fine. That's okay if you're just throwing like darts at people and hoping that they stick and just trying to grab anything on field because you have nothing else for them to fly. That's fine. But the lead FC, which is your scout, he is your FC. He dictates where that fight's going to happen. He is the eyes for the main FC. He puts you in a position where you can fight. So he has to know what your group can handle, how far ahead he is, and all that other stuff that comes with it. So it's a very demanding role that Bitter Vet Me gets zero respect on, which is why I harp on it all day. It takes a very specialized kind of weaponized autism to be the forward scout FC. You have to know everything. Because if you want to get your fleet content, you're it. If you want to get them away and alive so they can get into a better position, it's all on that person's shoulders.
Well, and I also think that's another really cool dynamic is that for like small gang warfare, you can get your feet wet with the scouting and learn the ropes. But like you were saying, Sliv, when it comes to the larger fleets, you want a scout FC and then a main FC so that you can coordinate that appropriately.
Patrick, what would you say the Tuskers' opinion on fleet comp is?
I think we are a lot less tryhard than people think we are. But for us, it's when we do proper setup fleets, it's usually shield, and we have our FCs. Our scouts are usually alts, mainly because in these fleet sizes where we operate, everyone knows what they need to do at any point. So you don't necessarily need a scout FC who knows what your fleet can handle. Everyone in your fleet knows that, and we set out for a specific target if we have an arranged fleet. For the most part, it's just kitchen sink, and then everyone just fills the role that the fleet requires at that very point. That's also quite different, as we pretty much the only time we use ECM is when we have a carrier tackled. Logi is super rare just because we have our constraint is usually numbers, so we need the DPS to break something, and if we have something in Logi, that takes DPS away from our core.
Because talking about Logi, one thing which I keep hearing is sort of I think it's the 4-to-1 rule, saying for every 4 DPS ships you have, you need 1 Logi ship. What do people find there's a certain number that works best, or do they go for the whole, we have like a pile of armor ships, we need 3 Guardians, or we have 12 people, we must have X amount of Logi, or do you just go with what you have?
I think it depends on situation a lot. I know a lot of groups that do 2-to-1 Logi, not wanting to lose the fight. Then you have other groups that maybe have nobody on, and you're just like, screw it, everybody on dock, fuck Logi, we got 1, we're going. So I think it depends on situation, depends on numbers, and it depends on the FCs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the time, certain FCs will take damage over Logi. I mean, that's how I run myself. I tend to go a little bit Logi light in all my fights, but we'd come up against certain people. I don't know if you want me to name names. Cough, Shadow Cartel. That has a really bad tendency to bring like 20 max with 10 Guardians, and that's just like, why would anyone even bother to fight you?
Yeah, that's exactly the balance you need to strike. If you over Logi, nobody will want to fight you.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going for like a structure timer or something that you have to actively defend, then you don't really have much of a choice.
Well, that's where you start to stray into the category of when a fleet becomes engageable and just stay away from, and that's quite. And I think That's an interesting concept for fleets to have. If you look at it and just go, how engageable is this fleet?
Damps are useless. Do not use them. They are a trick organized by Test Alliance to make them great like America.
I think a lot of it is making yourself seem as engageable as possible, but knowing that you're very difficult to engage. And it's a very fine balance that not many really think of.
Well, that's where having things like faxes and stuff is very helpful, because you can kind of, if you run into a situation where you bite off more than you can chew, you could potentially get a fax signed into you to kind of help you out. And the fact that they are a pure rep boat now, as opposed to the carriers when you kind of were sort of a, do I do damage or do I do reps? Now it's sort of a, I need more logi on field to help get in a fax or two.
I'm with it, but I think for subcaps they're way too strong. I would probably hesitate to say I think they need the Citadel. The way the newt thing worked on Citadels is depending on the size of your ship is how much it neuted. I think they should do that with reps on faxes.
So what, the size of the ship determines how much of a rep you actually receive?
Yes, because right now they are way too strong and they're very difficult to break unless you have a specific number of max or vowels. And even with vowels, it still took 45 minutes to lose one of our fax yesterday.
That is quite a nice concept. I do like the idea of that. So you'd have it where it is effectively primarily a capital repair ship, but it also has the ability to repair as much as, like, say, 1.5 Guardians. So it's not over the top, but it's also more than the Tech 2 logistics ship would do, because you want it to be better than a Tech 2 Logi.
Yes. I mean, it's hard to kind of theory craft that to an extent. I understand that, but at the end of the day, it still is a cap, repping subcaps, so I kind of get why it's as strong as it is, but I don't like that it's become the meta to have a cap fax on grid without having, like...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I hold out, my wish is to see, we've had a logistics frigate added, I really want to see a logistics battleship added, because that will bridge the gap between the Guardian and the fax, and I think we kind of need that, because a logistics battleship that's Tech 2, don't say the Nestor, because the Nestor's a weird one, but like a logistics battleship would be quite a nice little gap filler, because then you have that for Mac Bulls or, you know, armor brawling ships without having to resort to a fax, and that would be... I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Probably wouldn't be a terrible idea, but I mean, why not just give the Nestor, you know, bonuses and a roll for that? Because it's basically taking over the role anyways.
I mean, it does have the rep bonuses. Nestor, I think, is very niche in when it gets used, because it's like, well, do we want to sacrifice a cap and drop our fax, or do we just want to bring our Nestor? I think it depends on the fight itself, but more often than not, you're going for the fax anyway.
This is what I mean.
You're going for that apostle, so...
This is what I mean about the Nestor's a weird one, because you're right, it is a logistics battleship effectively, and it's kind of used for that role, but it's not a, oh, we're doing battleship fleets, let's take Nestors. It's usually, oh, let's take Guardians, because Guardians is what we have, and we don't want to have faxes on grid.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you're talking about triple-plated faction battleships, Balgorns, Vindicators, whatever the case may be, sitting with high-grade slave implants, over 25,000 raw armor hit points, and you're still only using large remote armor reppers on the Nestor. So, I mean, really, the fax is, if you're going to be flying a heavy battleship comp like that, I think the fax is really the only way to go with the reps as powerful as they are.
I mean, personally, I would like the Nestor to keep in line with the Strat and the Astero. Be able to warp while cloaked would be the greatest thing ever happened.
And just not have it as a logistics ship.
Drop the resist rolls and do something. Get another ship and put that with the resist rolls. Even use the Enforcer and those crappy lines as a repping ship of that line, where the reps are stronger to friends the higher your sex status, and because they're useless as they are. So keep the Nestor in line with the other ones, and then take the Enforcer, Pacifier, brain fart, What's the fucking battleship?
Marshall.
Marshall. Keep that line and turn that into the repping line. Concord reps, and then you have SOE doing missions, doing warpy while cloaked heavy newt boats, which would be great for a Nestor, I think. It's in such a weird place. It's got the SIG bonus for wormholing and stuff, and wormhole stuff, which is great. But I don't think a rep boat is... It doesn't keep in line with the other two ships at all.
Definitely shifting the wrapping bonus from the Nestor to an actual dedicated logistics battleship, I feel would be a much better option, because this is what I mean. The Nestor's in just a weird place where it's a bit weird in it's supposed to do a lot of different things, but it can't really do those things, but it does a different job, and like it should do a different. It's a weird one. I like the Nestor, but I like what it should be, not what it actually is.
You think more reps is what this game needs?
Not more reps, just sort of a bridge between Tech 2 Logi ships and capital logistics, because that is a huge jump. And I feel because they've added the logistics frigate, so obviously they're looking at sort of how to kind of scale up that kind of combat, as opposed to just going, we have Guardians on field, now we have Faxes. That's a huge jump. And having some sort of mid-grade would be quite nice, and you'd end up with much more interesting fleets, I think.
Well, what would a battleship logi do? It would still use the large reps. You'd get like twice the reps out and again at the Guardian.
I want to imagine it would have more rep modules because it has more high slots or more capacity transfer, but it just has a bigger tank and it just has more health. So it doesn't rely on speed tanking or sort of, like a Guardian does by orbiting quite far away. It just sits there and just kind of repairs things and just goes, I have a lot of EHP, try to keep me alive.
You could even have a better cap regen as well.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Or even inherent cap newt resistances.
So like
that would be nice
like a built-in cap battery, effectively.
Yeah.
That would be quite cool. And just then that way, it's a ship that sits with a mainline armor fleet, and it just sits in the middle of it and just repairs things, kind of like the Nestor does at the moment, but it's actually designed for that task rather than it just so happens to be pretty good at doing it.
Well, and then you could make it a counter to the blot. So, like, you've got the Scorpion is the Widow, and then what? The Rock becomes the fucking super Logi ship. That'd be fucking sick.
That'd be great. I'd love a wrapping Rock. But also it would give things like Balgorns, for example, a really good counter to Guardians and stuff, or like Geddon, sorry. This would be a potential counter to that counter, and mean that people have to go for things like Damps or other kinds of Yaaar, as opposed to just bring Balgorns. Which at the moment seems to be the big thing of everyone brings armor fleets filled with Balgorns, because that's the best way to deal with logistics ships. Whereas other kinds of Yaaar that might make it harder, like sort of dampeners and stuff like that, would be more useful against these ships, as opposed to just newts.
I mean, we would be using various ECM against Fax, but Faxes have the resistances to them once they're sieged, so it's or triaged. So it's like, if they didn't have that, we could actually have some fun and do different comps. But because we have the Faxes the way they are, being dropped in every battleship gang, we can only bring newts, because that's the only thing that works.
And that's why a logistics battleship would fill that gap, because it wouldn't have a siege mode. It would be vulnerable to those things. But it would obviously need good resistances, so it doesn't just get insta-jammed every single time. But like some kind of... it just needs a mid-ground, because the Fax is ridiculous. The Guardian is good, and there needs to be some sort of middle ground so you get more interesting fleets, I feel.
Alright then, let's see what we have in the inbox today. Oh boy, local has been exciting lately. So much salt, so much love. Without further delay, let's get this rusty truck of weaponized autism on the road. Want some fuck? Anyone for 1v1? You can put it on your stupid podcast. Sup girls? How are y'all in panic? If -10 is a prereq. Kinda weird to have an artificial rec, but 90% of your shitty players can't even meet that. We came 4 fights yesterday and you all stayed docked. I love being goon pet. Literally everyone here likes chin. Panic attacks, helpless raw core. Fucking warp core stabs. That's how bad you don't want to fight. GF. And by that I mean fuck all of you, ha ha ha. Thaddeus chapter 23-24, and thou are full of salt, and follow a failscade. Be thou redeemed in blood and fire. Follow thine the true religion, for thou art bathed in fail. Fucking slut, eat your fucking children. Panic, we embarrassed you yesterday.
Let's be honest, we embarrass ourselves too.
Brothers, we opened a toll booth. Can you please help us make sure it works properly and undock your scrawny nerdy pasty white panic riddled asses? Yo mama makes nice chili. Test Alec and best alliates. I came for the blow. I stayed for the jobs. Lol scrubby malediction, you should have sacrificed yourself. Thank you rate my ticks. I love you guys. Kill these cheap bastards. Get out my space Sancha. Stop abducting all the strange before we get some. Your mom is trash.
I thought it seemed like Detroit.
Your mom seems like Detroit. Are those polarized hackets? God, you guys suck so much dick. That's all for now, folks. Tune in next time for more salt and pepper from the world of Lowsec. Oh, and before I forget, Panic is recruiting, like Dreaded, except we aren't massive sellouts.
Oh, with Panic, derp.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it again and just say who you are, who you're with, and what you do? God damn
Good
it!
job, dummy.
CCP, where are my shield slaves?
Fuck the blue donut.